Empire. In the digital age, content must be posted immediately.
We've had a particular specialty in professional sports and college athletics because we've built these really super fast workflows that we call it a real-time workflow that the sports teams, when they're capturing live action, they really have come to rely on.
That's Andrew Fingerman, CEO of Photoshelter, where feeds are being updated before momentum in a game can even change. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. Andrew Fingerman is solving one of the biggest issues for leagues and content providers: how to turn around professionally taken shots in real time. One of his early partners is the Premiere Lacrosse League, headed by playing great and entrepreneur Paul Rabel. Tyler Steinhardt, director of marketing with the league, will join us for a discussion on how new leagues like the PLL are working with these new technologies to serve growing fan bases. Our guests this week are Tyler Steinhardt, who's the Director of Marketing with the Premiere Lacrosse League, and Andrew Fingerman, who's the CEO of Photoshelter. They're combining for a really cool technology to help connect with their fans amid the strangest times in the sporting world. Hey, guys, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Hey, Bram, how are you?
Doing good.
Well, thanks for having us.
Tyler, hey, let's just start with sports and COVID before we get to kind of how you guys are working together. How's life in the Premiere Lacrosse League as you try to navigate all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, when COVID hit in February, our co-founders, Mike and Paul Rabel, sort of in New York together, coming back and in early March, actually, trying to figure out what to do. And they sort of landed on going a fanless quarantine model, which we called the PLL Championship Series. We held from July 25th to August 9th. 2 weeks back in the we operated this famous novel pretty seamlessly. So for us, it's been sort of worked through and a challenge on both fronts, but we're adapted like everyone else.
And as you guys kind of look ahead, what do you see? What's the future look like right now?
I think the future probably changes every 2 weeks. And so for us, we're just sort of focused in on wrapping up this past year for our sponsors, our partners, our players, and then trying to take it day by day of like, can we have fans back in stands in 2021?
Yeah.
Is there more of a quarantine model? But those decisions are made a little bit above my head, though, that's for sure.
I think they're made above everybody's head right now. We're waiting for we're waiting for the universe to decide what our fate is. Andrew, let's bring no kidding. All right, Andrew, let's bring you into to the conversation here a little bit. How did you get connected with the Premiere Lacrosse League, and how are you guys working together?
Sure. So, Bram, we're a visual media technology company. We've been working for over 15 years with the professional storytellers. So that ranges from the pro photographers to the creative teams inside of the brands, as well as the marketing teams. And we do digital asset management, which is the most and least sexy term that I could possibly throw out there. But at a high level, digital asset management, it's how you corral all the content that you're producing. You put it in one central place, and you make it searchable and make it accessible to the people who need it inside and outside your organization. And we've had a particular specialty in professional sports and college athletics because we've built these really super fast workflows that we call it a real-time workflow that the sports teams, when they're capturing live action, they really have come to rely on because if you imagine what's happening on the field, taking photos of it, taking videos of it, you need to harness that, get it into one place, and then get the people's hands on it to get it out to market. And now more than ever, with fans outside of the stadium, the fan experience is moving so fast over to social media and over to the web that the sports teams look at tools like ours as essential for how they connect with their fans. And photo and video are the primary medium for creating that fan engagement, connecting with them, and kind of moving a dialogue farther on social media. So right now we're working with Major League Baseball, we're working with the NFL, we're working with PGA Tour and NASCAR, and of course the PLL. PLL came to us about 2 years ago, really because they wanted to do exactly that. They wanted to streamline the workflow of content I call it the content journey. So the moment the action is happening, taking the photo, transferring it to our tool, and making it accessible to the web team, the social team, even the players and their sponsors, so that the media can then move out to market and really proliferate. And so as many fans can see it as possible in real time. So that's what we do, and that's how we came together with PLL.
What's the turnaround time? Because you've described it very, in great detail. What's the turnaround time? You're shooting something, you're at a match, you're shooting something. To turn it around and get it out into social media in a consumable form, what are we talking about?
This is going to blow your mind. 60 seconds. So from the moment an action is happening, it is captured in the camera. It's moving wirelessly into our platform. And even now we have automated triggers that can send it out to other tools that you're using as well. So you can have your content in the market, let's say on Instagram or Facebook or up on your website within 60 seconds of a home run being hit or a touchdown or a goal being scored.
So the goal being scored, the touchdown, the block, maybe something like that. Those are obvious things. There's all these other moments that occur. How do you know what to get out there? How do you know what not to use so you don't flood the market with things that are maybe not usable?
Well, that's where some of the new technology that we've actually premiered, well, let's say some of the new technology that we've debuted with PLL comes in very handy. Because if you can imagine, upwards of 10,000 photos might be taken in a single sporting event.
Right.
And so there is a flood of content being developed. And the new AI is auto tagging the content in real time. So we're tagging on upload player names, we're tagging team names, we're tagging sports specific content. So we're recognizing equipment or other defining items from a specific sport that are happening in the frame, and sponsor logos. So if a particular player happens to have scored a goal or done particularly well, you can search by the player name and, let's say, the sponsor logo. You can really narrow in on the exact content that you want and push it out to the channel that's most appropriate or most productive.
Support for this podcast comes from AT&T. 5G from AT&T is fast, reliable, secure, and nationwide. So, should you switch? Well, historically, those were the reasons new tech was adopted. Neanderthals saw that fire heated things fast and made their caves secure from rampaging woolly mammoths. The ancient Romans saw that the aqueducts were a reliable and fast way to transport water, so they stopped carrying water jugs on their backs and adopted them nationwide. Oh, and 1800s Victorians saw electricity light up rooms fast and be more reliable than candles blowing out, so they stopped bumping into walls and made it nationwide. Today's no different. Switching to AT&T 5G is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, historically speaking, it's smarter than candles, water pots, and hungry dinosaurs. AT&T 5G. It's not complicated. 5G requires compatible plan, may not be in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
So Tyler, like from your perspective with this, look, obviously a goal is scored. You're going to want to get that out as soon as possible. But there's so many other moments that we're talking about here that are occurring within a. What are you all looking for? Like strategically, what are you looking for to send out quickly to your fans to help brand the PLL?
Finding photos that we were not prepared for. So after a goal happens, usually we pull that celebration or the shot, whatever might happen in the midst there. But because of the AI, we're pushing to universities, to college partners, to sponsors, media partners who are not on site because of COVID, to be able to access that imagery. And they pulled out some really interesting images, celebration photos that were similar to college images, a cartwheel at one point. So funny things like that were a huge success for us in identifying imagery that we didn't know existed or we weren't looking for. It was a huge win.
So how did you kind of streamline all of this together? And maybe Andrew, you can start on this. Like, clearly when you work with all these different leagues, yes, they're looking for content. They all may be looking for different things. How do you kind of streamline that partnership as you try to figure out what works for everybody?
Bram, let me take two steps back and I'll explain what the old way used to be, because I think it'll help bring to life the huge leap forward that's taken place here. So if I'm a typical sports team, I might have a few on-field content producers, whether they're pro photographers or videographers on the field, and that's specifically during the game. Obviously, there's all kinds of other things that they're doing outside of the live action, and there's content being developed around that too. But during the game, it's the most valuable content that needs to be taken action on in real time. And the old way might be a pro photographer, let's say, would capture the images during the game, and maybe at a stop in the action, maybe at the end of a quarter, they would take that card out of their camera, give it to a runner, and the runner would take it to a photo editor who's sitting in the media room, and that photo editor would go through the entire selection of images, probably pick a handful, apply metadata, so apply the keywords and the captions to articulate what's happening, and that gets embedded in the photo. And then that gets sent off to the key players like the web person or the scoreboard operator or media partners or social media. And there's all kinds of latency that's introduced in every exchange. So the keywording, of course, being one of the most tedious parts. But if you think about all these different hands that the content needs to change hands through in order to get out to market, it's really very manual and problematic if the goal is to get content out to market as fast as possible. So we've been able to look at that workflow and remove key steps in the process. So now, of course, the cameras are getting much stronger, more robust, and they have wireless, Wi-Fi capabilities. So you can actually do a selection of content right after the image is taken and push it from the camera into the web and up to Photoshelter. Inside of Photoshelter, we've actually added the keywording, the automated keywording capability with our new AI feature, and that will also take that human aspect out of having to cull through all the images, and so it eliminates that very tedious process of keywording and tagging the content, and so it can then be placed into the appropriate for our audience folders that can then be distributed to sponsors and other stakeholders throughout the organization and media. So hence, if they know exactly where to look, it's a constantly building stream of content that your partners can get their hands on and take action on it.
Tyler, obviously you guys are a young league in a modern world, and you guys are looking at this in a very modern way as you try to build fans and people who are consuming your content. Can you kind of give me just an overarching strategy here a couple years in of what you're trying to build and what a success model looks like for you in terms of outreach? From
a league standpoint, as we sort of grow, I think what's core to what we're doing is social media and content. And probably the most focal point that we made from the launch is being player focused and really player driven. And so when we sort of built out with the Photoshelter, the reason sort of like asset management matters is because we were trying to get photos in the hands of our players as fast as possible. So from like a timeline perspective, the player plays the game, they shake hands, they take pictures of on the field, and they kind of get back to the locker room, shower. They'll have 200-300 images, on their phone of them playing the game. They can sort of post on social media.
Andrew, so you guys have figured out a lot of problems and turned it into something that can be turned around very, very quickly. I'll leave you with this. Like, what's the next step for you? Like, what are you guys looking at that you feel like you want to solve in the next 3 to 5 years?
Bram, for us, the essence of what we've just done, the introduction of AI has kind of whet the appetite for more automation capabilities that can be built in. So we're really focused on making life as easy as possible for the professionals who deal with content day in and day out. And if you think about how many different pieces of a sports organization, or even we work with about 1,200 different brands, so corporate entities as well. How valuable that content is. We want to not just kind of streamline operations, but we actually want to make the content as useful and as valuable as can be to the people who work with it on a daily basis. So I guess, to be a little bit of a corporate wonk, we're looking to generate as much return on investment in content as possible and really make heroes out of the people who are producing the content. So for us, adding more collaboration capabilities, adding more automation that helps content fly through this journey that I'm talking about and get out to its most productive destination is really where we're highly focused. So we want to kind of wring as many inefficiencies out of the process, but also kind of tap into the business problems. So if I walk into any sports organization and I say, I've got this great piece of software that helps you streamline your photo team's workflow, they're like, yeah, but that's not the big business problem that we're trying to solve. I want to, hopefully one day soon, put more butts in seats in my stadium and sell more sponsorships and sell more concessions and those kinds of business problems. I want to tie those together with visual content and see how our tool can really help support all of those fundamental business challenges that the sports teams and the sports leagues are facing.
I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had seen you speak, Graham, at American University for the CME conference that Matt Winkler hosts down in DC. And I think at the time, if I remember correctly, Snapchat was really blowing up. Maybe it was 2015, 2016. And that was sort of like the new wave of social media. And now obviously TikTok is the biggest one. I think that what's really interesting of sort of where Photoshelter is sort of working is it's finding its way to adapt to what's becoming more modern, what's becoming the technologies out there like AI, and what the consumer need is. And for us and for so many other people who are working in the space, it's getting content out super fast, very timely, in a really organized manner. And it's not the sexiest stuff at times, but it enables an efficiency and scalability that really wasn't imaginable 10 years ago on the content front. And so that's what kind of gets me so excited. And I know it's sort of a weird callback in many ways, but I think it's kind of cool to see how things have changed so much in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and we'll see where they are 5 years from now. I mean, there's just kind of no guessing where it's going to be then. Andrew Fingerman is the CEO of Photoshelter. Tyler Steinhardt is the Director of Marketing for the Premiere Lacrosse League. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks,
Graham.
On the next Future Sport podcast, what if I told you head injury could be lowered significantly by just wearing a special cap in practice?
If they're going to hold on to the pageantry of the game, at least let's work on practice. And so, the teams that we have wearing Guardian caps, they wear it in practice during the week.
That's Erin Hansen. She and her husband Lee have created Guardian Caps, a modern way to give contact sports an arsenal to battle head injury. That'll do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3 Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3 Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.